Every visualization you've seen is worthless.
Yes.
That was the title of a session you ran here.
Yep.
Why are visualizations so bad?
Fundamentally, I think the problem comes down to the visualizations that people produce are sort of seen as, I don't quite want to go as far as saying a byproduct, but almost an afterthought of the data process. And so what you end up with is a lot of default formats, which aren't necessarily wrong, a lot of default formatting, which almost universally are necessarily wrong. I always get a lot of Twitter retweets when I say, you can do great graphs in Excel, but you have to change every single default setting. All the colors, all the labels, all the graph styles. So, and it's not that people don't know some of the very best practice standards, like show your zero on the vertical axis, for example. It's that they think of the work as being the analysis and the data processing, and then we're just going to kind of quickly produce this thing at the end. And when you generate any deliverable or any communication with that sort of minimal amount of deep consideration, you get sort of a least viable quality product output from that process.
What are the most common failures in visualization?
I think fundamentally is that people don't think about how it's going to be used. And that takes on a lot of different facets, a lot of different angles, right? So the talk that I gave, I said that you have to have fundamentally purpose and focus first, and then the right data, and then the right structure, and then the formatting details. So the things that people talk about, where to put your labels and the key and the colors, like that's decorating the house, right? First, you have to have a real foundation of what is the purpose and what goal are we trying to achieve. And most of the visualizations, and by which I typically mean business graphs, they don't have the specificity. They are showing the data, which is like saying our business is making money. It's like, well, how are you going to do that? You need a little more detail to actually execute in a meaningful way. And when you can say, we're going to show how each product performed in each region over the last 6 quarters so we can see who the top performers are.
Sure.
That's a specification. That's something you can wrap your head around. It's a testable output, right? So you can say, all right, well, we built a graph. Does it actually show us these things that we said we care about? And that as a specification is also a design spec. It tells you what data you need to include, what you can exclude, and it gives you some idea of what are the key relationships, and you get to emphasize those in a graph rather than just kind of throwing everything onto the page and sort of whatever blindfold yourself and click one of the graph buttons in Excel is kind of what a lot of them look like.
Do visualizations have to prove themselves? And by that I mean, as the consumer, as the viewer, should you walk into seeing a new visualization and view it critically?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of things going on here. One, at some level, the visualization is being evaluated. The success is being evaluated by the consumer of it. So I can have a brilliant idea. I can come up with a brilliant new visualization, and if I put it in front of you and you're my customer and you say, I don't get it,
sure,
I have failed. Now, to be fair, that's audience dependent. And if you're not my customer and you say, I don't get it, that's okay if my customer gets it. If my customer is brain surgeons and they say, I know exactly what you mean, that's fine, even if the rest of the world doesn't understand it. But the bottom line is who's got to consume it, who's got to take knowledge away from it, and if that audience cannot effectively and efficiently take meaning away, then that's failed. So at that level, the visualization does have to prove itself. It's got to earn a living.
Last question for you. How do you begin a new visualization project? Does it start with the data? Does it start sort of with an idea? Where does it manifest?
Typically, it's a combination of not just the existence of data, but a need to explore it or a need to learn something from it. And this can take on all different kinds of angles. So I, about 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, went and saw the movie Looper, a time travel movie. Friday morning I tweeted, I saw Looper, attempted to diagram it. And I got email from Wired Magazine's entertainment page online saying, we would love to run that. and time travel is a great thing, right?
Sure.
Because it's complicated enough that you're like trying to track it. And so a diagram is a great way to explain it. So that was a combination of fun content and some need and popular appeal, right? Mm-hmm. I was not the only one who said this would be interesting to have a better understanding of. Slightly more mundanely, when I'm dealing with client projects, what they typically have, again, is the same thing. They have some fairly well-defined pool of data, and they have a need to convey a certain facet of it to a certain audience, typically a customer, right? And rather than sending the customer a spreadsheet or something sort of broad and generic, they say there's a particular message, there's a particular relationship or meaning in this data that we need to convey to our customer to be effective. And so then the conversation becomes, yes, we could graph it in any sort of arbitrary way, but if we want to make this data maximally transparent or maximally effective for that customer, we need to know what's in the data, we need to know what the customer needs to get out of it, and what are our goals in conveying that knowledge to the customer. Right. And those are the things that are going to define the visualization, steer me towards what the content is, steer me towards what the structure is. Right. And if you don't have a good idea of who's consuming it or what's in the data, you can explore and be in sort of this analytical mode, and that's fine. But when you get to the level of presentation, to be successful, you have to have a pretty good idea of who's going to consume it, what they need, and what's fundamentally in the data to begin with.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks.